Yeah, on
We're
air.
live. Hi, all, and welcome again to our Conscious Aging series of live conversations with our guests and ourselves. We talk too, right?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
okay,
We do.
okay.
We do.
Oh, we are Mark Davenport, and
Heidi Hörnlein.
yes, and we're coming to you from Paradiso Integrale, where we are in Umbria, Italy. And it's a gloomier than yesterday spring day, but the buds are bursting everywhere nonetheless.
Hmm.
But before we meet our guest, a quick word from Heidi about how to view and comment and ask questions
Yeah.
today.
If you are on YouTube, please come over, and now you get also the name of our guest, to the wisdomfactory.net/Kimberly Dog. And there you can write comments and can ask questions, and we will insert them into our conversation.
Okay.
This is part of the Conscious Aging series, and you still can register. We still have about 5 episodes or so. You can register at this address, bit.ly/conscious aging, or with small letters. And when you see who is in the program, has been already or will come, still until the end of April, go to bit.ly/conscious aging. Why? C of conscious is a big letter, and A of aging, written always with AGE, is a big letter too.
All right.
That is the technicalities.
Okay. And audience, we will test you on that information. Okay. All right. But now let us meet our guest, Kimberly Dark. And she just might change your ideas about yoga. So before we say any more introduction, Kimberly, say hi so everyone can see you.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Okay, thank you. It's a treat.
And the title?
The title of today's show is The Aging Body and Yoga.
Yeah, and I want to say that I met an article of Kimberly in Medium, and I was very intrigued about this. And so I invited her to talk to us because I think that's a good way to do something.
Yes, it
for
is.
Getting older.
And I've noticed that she has a lot of stuff on Medium. And some variation on Medium, which I didn't quite understand too, but all Medium somehow. She is unique. And she's a longtime student and teacher of yoga. In her ads, she doesn't look very much like a trim and slim 30-something idea of the successful young professional exerciser. No, she is like the rest of us, no matter what our age, getting older, and her body changes as she ages. And luckily,
and she is much younger than we are.
We age it no matter what our age. Yeah.
So we do too.
Okay. So, all right. Yes. Fortunately, she has gone through the internal changes that these external changes have required. That's an important chunk of life. So that's no feat in our youth obsessed culture. So, Kimberly, you have quite a story to tell. Would you like to start at the beginning, or would you like to start by correcting any lies we've said about you already?
So far, no lies. Which story would you like to hear? The story of my yoga journey, or the story of my aging journey? I'm not sure.
A little bit all together. I think we can tie it together with the topic you have is the body acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think this brings us almost everywhere because, first of all, we women have a problem with body acceptance. I have heard that about
men don't, right?
No, not so much. They think about their body at all. But that's only about 3% of women who are happy with their bodies. And this is, oh, wow. So shall we start from that?
No, that's fine with me if it's fine with Kimberly.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that's an amazing statistic, isn't it? That almost no one is happy with their bodies. So yes, as Mark has just pointed out, I don't look like most of the people on the covers of the yoga magazines. The fact is, I've always been fat, but was athletic previously, as I was younger, and then in my mid 40s, I started to develop osteoarthritis, as many people do as they age, and that really changed my yoga practice in a big way, because I was not as capable of high impact exercise, and I just had more pain in my regular everyday life. But at this point, I've been practicing yoga for almost 30 years and teaching for almost 20. And so, it wasn't a question of stopping. It was a question of how do we work with the body as it is today? And, and that's a thing that I often say as I teach classes and retreats, is that yoga is not for the body you had 10 years ago, or the body on the cover of the magazine, or the body that you might have next year if you stop eating ice cream. It's for the body you have today. There is literally no other body than this one. And I think that's the thing that we forget, that is so important to, body love and acceptance, is that you don't get to, just by hating this body, you don't get a new one. It doesn't work that way.
I'll stop doing that then. Okay.
Yeah. You may as well accept this one, because this is the only one that you can really feel and breathe and love in. It's the only one you have, day by day, moment by moment. And so, of course, that's part of the yoga practice as well. It's not just physical. It's also about how do we become comfortable in our minds. So yeah, I do these 2 yoga retreats every year. The Yoga is for Everybody retreats. And, and sometimes there are people there that are struggling with their changing bodies, and that's why they've come. Sometimes I'm so surprised at how many women in particular, as you've mentioned, Heidi, who are young and very fit looking, are still carrying so much body hatred and shame. And and so sometimes these are the people who come to these retreats. So it's a really interesting phenomenon. It doesn't matter what you look like, you can still carry shame or or difficulty.
Yeah, the thing is that we compare ourselves to ideal, which we don't even know what it is. Maybe these starving mannequins. No, it's really not an ideal,
Who aren't even real.
we grow to be not good enough, not right, somehow not right. And the body is the first thing you can make not right, because you have a little belly, or you have a little this and that. When I was 18, I was for sure not like now. I think I weighed about 62 kilos, but before 80 was a lot, and I tried to hide my butt, and always wanted to stand sideways to the people, so that they don't see my, that they don't see it from the backside. And when I think today, I'm maybe the double of then, and then I was really, let's say, slim in my opinion, but I never felt myself as slim, always insufficient. And how can we change this culture?
Well, I think one of the ways that we change this culture is by realizing that that's happening, that a lot of times we end up with these cultural ideas and we just think they're real. We think that that's real, that someone is going to judge us poorly if they see our butt, right? Like you're describing. And the fact is, we believe that because discrimination really is real. I mean, there's no question about that. But what isn't real is that these things are important actually to our daily lives. I mean, I always think about the amount of time that women in particular waste, worrying about these things, when really we could be doing something more interesting or more useful, or And so I think that's one way through it, is to just acknowledge and be aware that this is happening, And then here's the solution right here. I'm going to just say it. You practice. You practice thinking differently, and you practice behaving differently. And, it's not always consistent, right? Like sometimes, sometimes I have a great time getting up and putting on a bathing suit and going out to the beach, and, and I don't think about, what does my body look like? Other times I think, oh goodness, I've got a little more, little more flab or something, now that I'm getting older, and that still is a practice, though. It still is a practice to say, yes, I feel this, but do I let this rob me of a beautiful day at the beach?
Exactly.
And the answer is no. The answer is no, I don't. And that's a matter of practice, and just oftentimes being around other people as well who who also are practicing in the same way. So, I know that practice is not a sexy answer to how do we solve this, but it's the real answer, and it's the way that humans change.
Exactly. And the practice is not allow others to take power over you, because if you accept what other people think and try to behave, first of all, you cannot make happy everybody by your behavior. So it's better you make happy yourself.
Well, I wanted to point out, just as by the way, so to speak, that you have something about you that is very attractive that you can't do anything about, and that's your voice. Kimberly. It's really wonderful. Yeah.
I like your photos.
Oh, that is, yeah.
When I think sometimes that women who have a little bit more roundness are much more beautiful than these things which are like this, look like men.
Well, basically, men think more generous bodies. Women
like more this,
too.
Yeah.
So I don't know who started this conspiracy of thinness anyway.
I think it's the women that want to be, I don't know what. Anyway, let's go further. We have Vivek here in the audience, and he is asking what type of yoga you are doing, and what is the role of exercise and meditation in yoga, in your view.
Great question. So, I apprenticed with an Iyengar style teacher. I am not Iyengar certified. So, that's a word that really only people who do yoga might recognize. BKS Iyengar was one of the modern yoga masters who just passed on recently. He was an Indian guy who came, through the lineage of Krishnamacharya. So that was my my original yoga training, and then since then, I've also done kind of the vinyasa teacher training, that are a little bit more like boot camp sort of teacher trainings, and
kind of a contradiction in terms.
Exactly. It's a contradiction in terms, but this is now the most popular form of yoga in the United States, in North America and Europe, really. Are these flow classes that are quite aerobic, quite a workout on the body. Since I've become arthritic, I don't do fast vinyasa practice anymore because it's too much joint flexion. I do a gentle flow practice, or some of the deeper stretching classes. So that was my, my original training. And then the question, the other half of that question was about meditation and exercise. Right. Yeah. So, right. So this is I think this is kind of a big question, because it goes back to the question of what is yoga for? What is why do we do this? So there's a lot of answers to that, because yoga has many different branches and many different lineages. But, it all comes from, Patanjali was the first thousands of years ago to codify the yoga practice. And the Yoga Sutras actually, they don't refer to asana practice. They refer a lot to calming the fluctuations of the mind, so that the seer can rest in true consciousness. And so that's actually, the basic purpose of a yoga practice, is to do that. But the thing is, most people are not comfortable sitting to meditate unless they've done a little bit of exercise first, unless they've done, gotten a little bit limber and, so a lot of these practices focus there. So I think meditation has a huge role in yoga practice. That calming the mind is the thing. But keeping the body, I used to have a teacher who would say, why do we do all of this practice? Because it helps us live longer, and it takes a long time to be enlightened. So we've got to get in for the long haul.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, do you see in your retreats and your teaching the the idea, which I think is true, that women are more likely not to sit still for 2 hours, but to need some movement for meditation and for, more, I don't know, more dance or some sorts of moved meditation, while the men are more able to sit.
Yeah, just stare at a wall for 2 hours. That's all. Yeah.
No, I think I have also talked with other people, and I saw the preference of women to do something more with movement, and instead of sitting, so without even moving a finger. So that's seems to be not so much.
That's interesting. I have not noticed that that being fidgety is a gendered thing. I noticed that men do this too. I do think, though, that women are often more comfortable with a wider range of physical activities. So there are simply more women in yoga classes, in dance classes, in, these kind of group fitness situations. I mean, and that's true. That's true everywhere that I know of, North America, Europe as well, that there are just more women participating. But I'm not sure. Somebody could do a study on that question, right? Do men sit still easier, or but definitely women are more involved with dance, yoga, and group fitness than men.
Okay,
I believe that.
You do a study with your next retreat.
Yeah, right. I'll put it on.
See.
Yeah. So let's go into the aging thing. So what sort of yoga, what sort of exercises do you think are especially good for aging people?
Maybe beginners even?
Maybe beginners. I mean, is it possible? Let's start with that. Is it possible to start, let's say, with 80 to do this sort of yoga?
Oh, I get to wait for another 4 years. Oh, wow.
So look, let me just start by, that's a great question, and I want to answer it by telling you about one of my teachers, one of my significant teachers. So she's now in her 70s. How old is she? Maybe 77. And thought, because traditionally, a lot of times, yoga teachers will stop teaching asana practice at a certain point and just focus on meditation. They may still do asana practice in their own lives, but I mean, they stop teaching asana practice. So, that's not always true, especially in Western culture. And so my teacher thought that she would, stop teaching asana practice. And then, of course, as happens with great teachers, someone asked her, well, will you do a class at the senior center? And so suddenly she's in a position now of teaching yoga. She sent me a photograph recently of, she's the picture was of a person in downward facing dog, which is kind of, you make the body like a triangle. And she said, first downward dog, age 86, and is with this photograph. So it absolutely is possible to start practicing yoga at any age of life, at any stage, because the yoga practice is adaptable. Not every posture is for every body, but everybody can do some postures. If you can breathe, you can do yoga. So that's so definitely that's true. So now she's in the role of teaching older beginners, which I love, because it's like, wow, here's a person who has dedicated so much of her life to teaching yoga, and now she's teaching beginners with older bodies, and what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is.
So for me, of course, as Mark pointed out earlier, we're all aging, no matter what age we are. I mean, the process is happening. It's already in process. So the fact is that yoga helps us to become aware and become present in the bodies we have today, which literally that changes every day. You may have noticed that some days your balance is great, other days your balance is a little shaky, right? I mean, this is a normal thing, that our bodies are not the same every single day. So neither should our yoga practice be the same every single day. I think it's easy to do the same practice, when you're 30 every day, but as we get older, we have to really, find out what's happening today. What am I capable of today? And develop a contentment with, what is possible now, because it's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So, the article that you mentioned that you had read, Heidi, has a story in it, which, may I tell that story about?
Yeah, sure. Let me first intervene, because there's Vivek was still saying he's Indian but living in UK. He says, I do hatha yoga for 50 minutes every day, and his practice includes Shambhavi Mahamudra meditation. So there are people who are definitely doing a lot of practice. And Vivek is not yet so old, but he's aging too, like everybody. Hey, Vivek.
He's no spring chicken, no. But
well, look, there's another thing too, which is that people's bodies are different. There are some people who can still do a very vigorous yoga practice into their 80s, and other people whose bodies have, slowed down before that. And so, that's the importance of regular practice. Of course, helps us, continue, but it's the value of really being present in your own body day by day, because we're not all the same.
Yeah, that brings up a question. We've been talking about coming to accept growing limitations or changes in our bodies. But how about coming from the other end? How can yoga teach us to accept who we are becoming as well?
I think that's a really key question, right? That the more we practice being present in the bodies that we have, the more it becomes absurd to want something that is not real. Because that's really what's happening when, when we yearn for a body or an ability that we had in the past, right? That's gone. And the future has not yet happened, so why worry about the body you might have then? Like how do we become present in this one?
Yeah.
And that is really at the crux of the yoga practice, right? Is, look, if you're trying to balance in a tree pose, for instance, and you're thinking about the past and you're thinking about the future, you're a lot more likely to fall over than if you're thinking about, how is the body balanced? How is my foot on the floor? How is my alignment and my focus? All of that, every asana we do, everything we do with the physical body is a metaphor for what's happening in our minds, and what's happening in our lives. That, we have to develop some kind of focus that brings us present. Otherwise, just like in a balance pose, you're likely to fall over.
If taking that approach, from yoga to our complete selves, what are people learning in this modern Western usual practice of yoga? What's happening to them as people?
For instance, can I answer that? We are doing something which is called Pilates, but it's a mixture of yoga and Feldenkrais and dance and maybe also Pilates. And you can see it so clearly when you are not in your concentration. All these balance exercises which she does with us, you just fall over when you are thinking about something else.
So I wasn't going to bring up the balance part.
Yeah. But it's good. That's what I would say for older people. When you learn this balance, you won't fall. You will get exercise used to it. There is also these cushions, which you stand on them. At the beginning, it looks difficult, and later it's easy, and you won't fall. And falling is for older people is a problem, no? So that's my idea. Now to you.
For sure.
Fortunately, I'm very good at falling. Okay.
I was so absorbed in your story, Heidi, I forgot your original question, Mark.
What is good for older people?
Yes, if our practice of yoga, or whatever our physical practice may be, if it leads to a difference in who we see ourselves to be, who we actually are as people, then what is it that the modern, physical, very energetic, very vigorous, attainment-oriented yoga, what does that do to the people themselves who are...
Okay, so let me just talk about this for a moment, the modern attainment-focused, vigorous practice of yoga. Look, yoga has become a fitness craze, right? Yeah. There's across North America, Europe, Australia, there's no question about this. And and so there are people who are practicing yoga who just want and sometimes there's even ads that say things like, get the yoga butt, or tighten up your abs with breath of fire. And, that it really is just about the attainment of physical attributes, or the attainment of, or even just looking like, oh, well, I'm fashionable because I practice yoga, this sort of thing. I think that we do well to remember that any practice can become co-opted by the, sort of capitalist ideals that say you should spend money and do a certain thing and wear the right clothes, and then you'll be happy. And so I think that yoga has definitely been co-opted in this way, and we can still enjoy the practice and benefit from the practice nonetheless, right? So, so I do find, I don't think that those practices that just focus on appearance and on fashion and all of that are that's not the main point of doing yoga, obviously, but we still can benefit from. I mean, I'm very happy that there are a lot of yoga studios around to choose from, because they're populated by these people who, are just following the fitness craze. So I think it is important, though, to sort that out, and to hopefully by doing the yoga, more of those folks even are coming to a place where they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I'm in my body, rather than worrying about the appearance of my body. I mean, because that happens, right? Like, even if we didn't intend it, sometimes it still works. The yoga works, and we come into the body,
Despite ourselves. So,
so I think the practice itself is still beautiful, but there's no doubt that that a lot of this consumer focus on yoga has created a whole group of people who do it for those reasons.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have interrupted you a lot. Now you can go back to the story you wanted to tell us.
Which one?
From the article.
From the article, right? Yes. I was going to tell you a story from the article. this happened to me once. I was teaching an inversion practice. It's one of the things that we do in yoga is come upside down. And again, anybody can do that, because upside down really just means that your hips are above your heart. And so, it doesn't have to be a big dramatic headstand but so anyway, I was teaching arm balance and headstand practice. And I was telling the students how I have always been a little bit afraid, of going upside down. And so, it took me about 10 years to learn to do the headstand and the arm balance. And, I find that with the practices the poses that challenge me, I add maybe one a year. I'm not real quick. So this man after the class had asked me, he had been frustrated by his own slow practice, and he wanted to ask about this thing I had said. And he said, look, but even though you add maybe one hard pose a year, you're over 40 now, right? And so once you get it, though, you don't ever lose it, right? And I thought about this. At the time that he had asked me, I had not lost the ability to do any yoga poses. I had not. And so that was true. But I said to him, it's true. I have never lost the ability to do yoga pose. But logically, if I live long enough, I will. I will. And so what does that mean to us? What does it mean to us to lose the ability to do something? Clearly, he was seeing it as a failure. Right, as a failure of the body, that he wanted a reassurance that that if we attain it, it is always ours. And I think this is not useful thinking. It's not useful to think this way, and that sometimes we have this situation where yoga is supposed to be the fountain of youth. And people think of it this way, that, somehow I can keep myself from aging. Well, look, the fact is, at 50 now, I do feel the effects of the osteoarthritis. I do feel the effects of getting older. Does that mean I've been doing the yoga wrong? Does that mean I've failed somehow? No, it just means that my particular body is aging in this way. And so my yoga practice can help, of course, as I get older. Of course, staying active helps us stay active, but it's not a magic pill, and I think that's the thing, that in our minds we have to train the mind to accept the changes of the body, but at the same time, work with the body so that those changes can be as gentle as possible.
Yeah, and you can maintain as much as possible of your possibilities,
Yeah.
Also a personal story. I, for a long time, 10 years or more, living here in the countryside that was far from having internet in these days. So I had a yoga book, and every day I did the asanas, and for about 10 years. And now I have a spine. I go down, with flat hands on the floor, and no problem. And I see young people who reach maybe their knees. I mean,
yeah. It's the value of practice.
Yeah.
The value of practice.
And it's so good if your body keeps as much as possible elasticity, when you get older, because nothing is worse to feel like, like being immobile. And I think with all yoga or similar body exercises which respect the body and don't work over the body limits, but respect the limits and slowly, gently push the limits. We can, yeah,
that's it. That we want to be. This is another thing that I talk about a lot in my retreats and in my classes, is that we want to be neither precious nor reckless with the body. That when we're reckless with the body, we get hurt. right? When we're overly precious with the body, we don't ever push ourselves to, you know, to do anything. Like we're afraid, you know, and that's not useful either. You know, I say, I mean, especially for people who don't normally do a 5-day retreat, you know, the fact that we're practicing yoga every day will feel like a lot, right? But for people who have a, you know, a strong physical practice, it won't feel like much. That's okay. It's okay to have both experiences. But, you know, for those people for whom, you know, 5 days of practice is a lot, I say, look, you know, there's ice available in the kitchen. You know, you can you know, you get a sore muscle or something, you can ice it later. You don't have to be precious with the body, but neither reckless. So finding that space in between.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and then it's also for everybody, it's a different perception, you know.
Yeah.
If you think you have to be as good as the first in the class,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's your problem. No,
Mhm.
that is also in this aspect, it's really good not to be the first, because you learn how your mind is working. I can give you another story. I began Aikido with 50, and I was sure not. It was a hard thing to do, because I was so confronted with not being able, what seems so easy, you know. And
Yeah.
so you learn a lot about your own expectations and how you treat yourself, and you learn also to come to terms with your
And you learn to
possibilities.
fall.
And I've learned to
Yeah.
fall. That was good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
No, I don't do it anymore, because it's just too far away to
Yeah.
for the whole day, and you have to practice at least 3 times a week, and it takes me 70 kilometers go and 70 back, so it was too far away. But
Yeah.
I loved it, and I think everybody should begin as early as possible, with 10 or 8 or something, or even earlier. It's
Yeah.
the best thing to do.
How young have you been teaching people? How young are the people? I mean,
How young are the people? Well,
Yeah.
you know, I don't work with children. I work with adults, and you know, I teach and I facilitate the yoga program at Kalani Honua, which is the largest retreat center in Hawaii. So you know, so I teach there, and so it's a retreat setting. We get a lot of people who are new to yoga, and we also get a lot of yoga teachers and people who are, you know, really strong practitioners. It's a really mixed group, but children not so much. But there are definitely yoga programs and yoga books and teachers who specialize in teaching from toddlers on up. You know. Children respond really well to the poses where you make the body look like a certain thing that they can recognize, you know, like we're going to do, you know, downward facing dog and upward facing dog. And, you know, we can remember like when dogs actually make this shape, because they do, you know, or we're going to do a boat pose, and, you know, we all look like a boat, and we're going to do, so, you know, it can be very fun, I think, imitating the natural world. You know, so children do really enjoy that. My own son, I started taking him to yoga classes when he was about 9, and only because I wanted to go to yoga, and I thought he was too young to leave at home by himself, so he had to go. And the thing that I told him was, you know, look, you can do 2 things in a yoga class. You can do what the teacher says, or you can lie down and be still in shavasana. You know, these are your 2 options. You don't get to do anything else while we're there. And he used to do about half of the class, and then he'd just lie down, and then, you know, at the end, and I thought, well, do you know, this is wonderful, actually, that he's capable of lying down and being still for a half an hour. 40 minutes, you know, that's fine. But he did a little bit of the practice, and then he'd lie down, and I thought for sure I had ruined him, you know, that he would never go do yoga again once he had the choice. But as a teenager, he came back to it, you know. He started doing his own practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good.
Excellent.
And still does. He's 28 now.
Good. So you said we have to stop a little earlier today because we have the time zone confusion.
That's okay.
The same thing, and you thought it was an hour earlier for you. It's the same hour for us, but for you, no.
Don't
we don't go into the confusion again because I don't get it. We have, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you, first of all, where are your teachings and so on? So people can find it also on the website, which is, let me see, thewisdomfactory.net/Kimberly-Duck. You will find the links there. But tell us a little bit about how they are structured, these things. You are based in Hawaii?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm right now I'm in California, but I am based in Hawaii, and of course Hawaii is just an amazingly beautiful place, and so it's an ideal place for retreats to really get away from one's life and enjoy the natural world. So I offer 2 retreats a year. They're 5 days each. And the retreat is called Yoga is for Everybody. But here's really what we're doing in these retreats is we're using yoga and nature and personal writing to really kind of look at what are the stories we carry in our bodies. Because, every single one of us has been affected by the way the culture views us, by the way we feel about our bodies and the world. And so we definitely do a daily yoga practice. Usually 2 hours a day. 2 of those days we do 4 hours of practice. So it's not like yoga all day long. But it's a nice combination of vigorous practice and also restorative yoga, where we focus on breath and relaxation techniques. So it's a combination of those things. And we do, a couple of outings to go in the sea and to, go to one of the local markets, and so it's a good experience, and it's always been a fabulous group of people. I mean, I have yet to have anyone come that I didn't like a lot once we were there.
That's great.
Yeah. So I do that twice a year in June and December. And we all stay at the retreat center where I teach yoga. And as I think I mentioned, that's the largest yoga retreat center in Hawaii. It's not a hotel. It's not a resort. It's a little bit more rustic, but still beautiful rooms, and the food is gorgeous. 3 meals a day, beautiful food. So that's where we stay and practice. And that's where I normally teach in the weekly yoga schedule. We offer probably, I would say 25 classes a week, yoga classes a week there for the local community and for the people who stay at the retreat center. So, and I coordinate our small group of yoga teachers there. As a group, we're always trying to learn more about how do we really enact the philosophy of welcome, so that everyone feels welcome to join the yoga practice, regardless of whether they've ever practiced before, or what their body looks like, or what they think, or, so that's, I'm very lucky to do that. Sometimes I also do those Yoga is for Everybody retreats elsewhere. I did one in England last year, so it was like a mini retreat, with just a 2-day, I was there for 2 days to do that. And I've got another one coming up in Ecuador next year. But so, basically when there's a group of people who want that, if it has to be a large enough group to warrant me traveling to do that, but
her smile showed her enthusiasm for what she's doing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful that people are interested, and especially that people are interested when they have felt shut out of such activities in the past. And I think that's often true for people who are either older or not particularly fit, or fatter, or somehow different than the person on the cover of the magazine. And let's face it, that's almost all of us. Almost none of us look like the person on the cover of the magazine. So I'm happy to focus my offerings on on welcoming folks who might not feel welcome everywhere.
Not even the person on the magazine cover really looks like that.
True. That's true.
But I wanted to add what I find so beautiful, and a little bit when I worked with voice, I did the same thing. Tell people and let them experience that they can do things they never thought they would be able to do, and that they are welcome to try it out, and that they are not judged like, you go away, you are not able, because it happens very often. And so I would really recommend that for people who feel a little bit uncomfortable because they don't how do you say, fulfill the expectations of society or strange teachers, to grab this possibility, because it's really, you need a teacher who is different, who is welcoming instead of criticizing. And then you can explore and can discover what is in you. Otherwise you are shut down. You know, in my singing teaching, I found so many people, they say, I cannot sing, because people told them when they were children, that's wrong, go, you cannot sing anymore. And then they carry it with them, and they can when they have the patience and the openness to try it, and with the right teacher.
You're doing that.
So
and as you mentioned as well, I'm also a writer. I'm a sociologist by training, and so this all of these discussions about the body and culture, is my interest. And so KimberlyDark.com, there's a tab that says in print, and there's a lot to click on there if somebody just wants to read an article or a poem or something about and then there's where to find I have a book of poetry out end of this month, actually, and that's available on the website. And so, lots to read as well.
That's wonderful. Really, that is a way how we can create a better world, inspire others to do things which they never thought is possible, and which are good for them, not the idiotic things, but
that's right.
Well, some idiotic things, okay?
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you're doing, with the Wisdom Factory and this program. I appreciate being invited. Thank you.
Thank you for having come, and hopefully we find another in the next season, another occasion, because you are very well fitting in our ideas of how to be in the world, to integrate several things, and to make a whole out of them, and to integrate people who otherwise would be outside.
How to be and how to become.
How to be and how to become.
Which we're very aware of these days, the becoming part, yes.
So, thank you. There is still a comment from Vivek.
Another thing.
Let me see if I find it.
Oh, he had to do his meditation. He's back now.
Yeah, he had to do his meditation. So he has it obviously at this very close hour. So he thanks
sometimes
us.
Routine is really helpful to people.
He thanks you and us, and wonderful. And there are other people and who are watching and who is watching in future. Thank you, and check all the links out to our website, thewisdomfactory.net. but also to yours, KimberlyDark.com, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, and from there you go everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Kimberly. Thanks so much.